think they'll drop the bomb? Mother, do you think they'll like this song? Mother, do you think they'll try to break my balls? Ooh, should I build the wall? Charlie and I were sitting on the couch in my living room one day, about 4 grams deep in some mushroom shenanigans. And I had one of these moments that you really only have when you're booming, of just high authenticity. And I decided I was going to talk about my time in the Air Force with her a little bit. And I remember out of nowhere saying that God threw me at a B-52. And I think that's probably a fairly accurate way to put my overall experience in the Air Force. If your God blows people up and is willing to turn the planet to glass in a mutually assured destruction plot, then as I look back on this now, your God and my God are not the same. My God walks away from everything it touches, and it creates life, not death. And so in that light, I'm going to tell the story of my time in the Air Force with as much candor as I can manage in 3 parts. In this video, I'll talk about basic training, and then I'll talk about tech school, and finally my permanent duty station. It's probably some of the best time of my life, but it was also some of the most challenging, because I did get to do some cool things, and it was a really interesting experience to work on B-52s. And honestly, I was grateful to have the experience. And in that experience, I had the opportunity to frustrate the effort to turn our planet to glass. I entered the Air Force, as I've said, on November 1st, 1988. And I was assigned to BTS Unit 3708 at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. I rummaged around. I'll throw it up here somewhere. I found my old PT uniform so that you can see I was in the flight. The timing of my enlistment is unique in the timeline of the Air Force, because I entered basic training either around or on the week that the Air Force went from an OD green uniform to a camouflage in basic training. Like, we might have been the first or second BTS, at least the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth for sure, that got the BDUs rather than the greens. You know, when you enter basic training, the old uniforms were these green OD ones, and if you came into the Air Force, it took about 15 days to get the name patches for your uniform ready and done. And so between when you got there and getting the patches, you were called an uncanned pickle. And then once your patches were on, you became a canned pickle. And what was interesting is that at this point in time, the BDUs really didn't fit that narrative of a pickle anymore. And that was the moment, if you will, that I entered the Air Force. So it's just an interesting, odd piece of timing. But if you were in the Air Force and you remember people suddenly coming out with BDUs, that's exactly when I was in the Air Force. I think it's fair to say that the only place that I was going to meet Airman Diego, because he was from New York City, if I'm not mistaken, was on the stairwell between the 2 flights. And it's important because I'll try and describe this maybe on my other channel, but Peter Levenda put it once, he says, no Einstein, no Jesus. Well, no Air Force and no enlistment, then no Diego. And it's just one of those things. Well, I've got some fish tacos coming. Thank you so much. Basic training can be funny, because I was literally talking to a friend and in basic training on the cot one day, and Wayne is going through the pictures that I brought along in my wallet of friends, and he turns out to be the cousin of literally one of my best friends. And it was a really interesting synchronicity, and I look back on it now and I wonder if it's not going to have some sort of backdraft value to it. In basic, the duties were handed out early on. We need to get the day room clean and swept, we have to do the floors and all that stuff. And I remember one of the guys got assigned the job of the latrine crew, heading the latrine crew, and the title that came with it was the latrine queen. And I got to be honest, it struck me very funny. It was funny. And I went up to him a little later and I actually said, I just got to say, latrine queen's really funny. And then 2 or 3 days later, might have been the next day, I turned out I was the latrine queen for the duration of basic. And, you know, although you might say, okay, Bob, so you were the latrine queen, it actually came with some perks. Because you see, in the hierarchy of the dorm, it turns out latrine queen was number 6. It went dorm chief, and then there were 4 flights, and then number 6 was the latrine queen. And what that meant was that when they assigned a group of guys to go to the obstacle course and volunteer for the day, to work for the day, I think there were 5 or 6 of us that went. I actually got to do all of the marching instructions and march the guys over and back. So latrine queen, yeah, bonuses. One really important story to tell you is that, you know, you see these guys who get TIs in their face, technical instructors or drill sergeants in their face, and I've heard this from other people that they do this in the other branches as well. But, you know, one thing that I recall happening, I think they did this to me, but I recall at least happening to somebody else, because it's kind of a gambit they do. But they'll walk up to you in basic training, they'll get right in your face while they're yelling at you, and they'll ask you, Airman Burke, would you kill a commie for mommy? And, you know, you're really not, I mean, I'm 18, I'm really not expecting the question. And something told me that they really, they really weren't looking for any other answer, but yes, I'm willing to join you in this quest to turn the planet to glass. And it was just kind of surreal because I had another experience where I actually made that evaluation. And I'll tell about that when I talk about my permanent duty station. But what's important to understand is that there are some incredible stories that come together about Russia and America and Wisconsin and all sorts of stuff. You know, in 2012, when I started writing, I remember coming across an article about a Soviet communist who defected to America in 1967. She left her kids there. Svetlana was her name. And she eventually went back to Russia, in part to see her kids, who were kept from her by the Soviet bloc government, and lived there for a time before coming back to America. And what's unique about Svetlana is that Svetlana died in a nursing home near La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I'm sure that the people cared for her very well. And if you want to know who Svetlana was Joseph Stalin's daughter, the former Soviet leader. He'd had her husband killed. Yeah. You know, we have so much compassion in our world. If we just take a moment to ask ourselves, why did Svetlana come to America? And the answer was she wanted to be free. And why was Svetlana in Wisconsin in a nursing home? And it was because she needed someone to care for her. I'm very proud to say that Wisconsin provided her that care. And so to the people of Russia, if the question is, would you kill a commie for mommy? The answer is no. I would not kill someone. Not for a government. Not for anybody. When I'm done with my day, I hope that I've brought more life to the world, more happiness. And I hope that I've brought some change. Peace.